There are roughly 119,740,000 kilometers between the planets Venus and Mars.
Somewhere in the middle lies Earth.
It's one small step for man,
Omnibus.
That's a gaslighter.
Love bombing.
Narcissist. Homemaker.
Deal breaker.
one giant leap for mankind.
If he wanted to, he would.
5 signs of avoidant attachment.
You wouldn't consider men and women
Society is broken.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Join us in the space between Venus and Mars. Hi, welcome to the space between Venus and Mars. I'm Jessie.
And I'm Chris.
And welcome to our podcast. This has been really weighing on my heart for some time now. It's always been a dream of mine to kind of have this medium to kind of explore topics and where I talk about all of the inner work and healing that I've done in regards to heartbreak. And I just really wanted to do it with my dear friend, Chris.
Glad to be here. In the trenches of heartbreak and work. We're doing it.
Yeah. So in preparation for this podcast, Chris and I have been trying to really try and dive into a lot of literature and books, written by therapists, written by sociologists, written by economists, written by journalists about this topic. So we're trying not to be more voices that spread into the abyss of our anxiety of trying to find love. And, we don't want this to be another podcast where we're trying to be prescriptive and basically being this like giant voice of reason. We're curious. We're curious about what does the space look like. We want to close the gap, or maybe not even close the gap, but like try and understand what exactly is in that gap between men and women in heterosexual relationships right now.
Sure.
And a lot of that for us is like being curious and trying to explore like all of these really big questions.
Yeah. Which I think is a hard thing for this moment in particular, I think, because a lot of people, it seems like a lot of people aren't really interested in like sitting in discomfort of messy questions and answers right now.
Yeah, I feel like with that, I think that there are a lot of roles that we assume when we get into romantic entanglements. I think that we're still trying to follow a script. We're all actors trying to follow a script. And it's tough because that has changed over the years.
Sure.
But yeah, I feel like there is kind of this script that we try and follow. And what's crazy about it is I feel like it's sometimes even separate from how we understand our own selfhood.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like we enter into these roles and it's like we sever ourself to serve the role and not ourselves, if that makes sense. Like I feel like that happens a lot with women. Like it's like you sever your selfhood to serve the role of a wife or a mother or a girlfriend.
Sure.
I
mean, as far as like the idea of these roles, that we're like sublimating ourselves in order to serve and where they come from. I mean, I think there's a little bit here, just even in the namesake of the podcast and everything like that, of like the world that we, as I guess, kind of cusper millennial Gen Zers kind of grew up within in the 90s was a very different idea of gender, I think, than what we kind of all live in now. And I think we've seen so much evolution in that. But I think a lot of the reactionary stuff that you're seeing, especially within like the manosphere and stuff like that, it's all of this stuff that's really a conservatism that's bringing us back to like 80s, 90s idea of like men be like, women be like, and like not really digging into any of the murkiness of like we can establish our own roles at any time, and we can have conversations with each other about what people are responsible for or like should be doing within a relationship. And I think you can't really discount simply the idea that like there is no assumption to be made anymore, and kind of all of it is stuff that has to be discussed.
Yeah, I just feel like all my girlfriends and people that I talk to are really struggling in this time of trying to find, like, yes, they're looking for husbands, they want to be mothers.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And I think on an even deeper level, people are looking for love and are looking for the one. Despite how far away and how disillusioned people feel from that idea, I think everyone's still chasing that kind of high.
Okay. Okay. You
And
don't think the culture has turned on that a little bit?
I mean, I think, yes, the culture has changed on it, but I still think like our idealized version of what we want that to be is still very much ingrained in us. And we're still chasing it, regardless
Hmm.
of, especially for women. I think women are still trying to find the one.
Hmm.
I mean, I think so. I mean, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, guys are still doing that, or well, at least the guys I'm talking to are supposedly trying to do that. But you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
that's the rub right now is it feels like a standoff right now.
Mm.
Dating, everyone's a little bit suspicious of each other.
Mm-hmm.
A
A
little.
standoff. Wow.
Yeah, I think especially the way I have sort of perceived the conversation as far as social media is concerned. Social media is very concerned right now with othering your partner or othering other perspectives within the world or perspectives that of people you'd be dating right now, and either villainizing them or pathologizing them, and not really interested in actually digging under to like figuring out what is the answer to connecting with these other people, and instead just sort of pushing blame and maybe deflecting.
Yeah. And I
bit.
think there's a lot of money to be made on people turning their backs on each other. Like, I think people are
Sure.
making a lot of money off of people like being on really hardcore sides of the spectrum, whether that's like settling into the manosphere and like
Mm.
really digging into like stoicism, or like being like very girl bossy and pro, like if he wanted to, he would, and all men are trash. Like, I think there's a
Right.
lot of money on either ends of the spectrum. And I think people are like really exploiting that, exploiting like people's bitterness and heartbreak, as terrible as that sounds.
No, I mean, it totally makes sense. I mean, I remember after my breakup, I like was being targeted with Instagram ads that were like specifically quote unquote life coaches who would be telling you, oh, I have the perfect template. You just send these messages and you'll win them back. And it's like this idea of like, again, the idea of a role you're playing, and which ends up putting these people in positions where you're not even connecting with a person for any genuine reason. You're just emotionally manipulating them. And like, I mean, obviously there's sociopaths out there who exist, but I think a lot of people are just turning to that stuff more out of desperation than anything, I think.
That's so interesting that you said that, because I think we're all basically trying to find something to hold on to. We're trying to find like scripts to still follow, because for so much of history that has been what we have done in courtship.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm reading this book called The End of Love: A Sociology of Negative Relations by Eva Illouz. I think I'm saying that right. I hope I am. But essentially, it's a very, very comprehensive and very meaty book with a lot of great info, and we'll be referencing it quite a bit. But I'll read a couple kind of little blurbs. But she says, rituals bring people together through predictable and shared rules that intensify and sharpen emotions, reduce self-awareness, and increase the capacity to believe in the reality of the situation. Because ritual is a structured behavior, it directs attention to the object of the interaction rather than to the inner self. So I think that like for so much of human history, like courtship was so scripted. Like
Sure.
it was really depending on where you were in the class structure, you had a role that you would just follow through. The man would court the woman. He would and the woman's role was to either comply or what's the word? Or reject, and then you'd give a gift. And then you'd ask the father, can I take you out? Whatever. So I think it's like you would express it through this ritual. And when you're doing that, like there isn't much thinking involved. Like you're just
Sure.
copying the pattern.
Going through the motions.
So I think that now that we've kind of dismantled those structures, it's almost like we've made things more complicated by having things more fluid, because now it's like we have to look inward to then actually find intention. Whereas like the intention was always like, to get married, to have a family, to have like to like kind of grow economically, I think. I don't know.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of that has been part of the messiness, I feel like, is also just like the sort of decoupling of the economic idea from it in some ways as well, which is another, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, kind of relatively recent.
Yeah, it is.
As far as like the idea of marrying just for love.
Yeah.
And not as like an economic bonding or the idea of these rituals being the thing that defined relationships for so long. And the thing you're sort of saying about how the ritual itself ends up defaulting one person to becoming an object in it.
Yeah.
In some ways. I guess it is ultimately kind of like any of these larger systems we're buying into at the end of the day are kind of just trying to dissolve our own egos in a larger structure. You're having a wedding because it's the culturally acceptable way to like be connected to an idea larger than just you two hanging out all the time. I don't know, you're kind of bonding as a single person and you're connecting again to like a larger idea in culture that ultimately I think is supposed to kind of shatter the idea of your individual self in some ways, which I think is a thing that's kind of at odds with a lot of the current world.
That's the like societal strife that we're dealing with right now, I think. And especially like I can say for myself personally, it's like I want to have this like hyper independence.
Sure.
I want to still have this whole total and complete sense of self. And at the same time, I'm still chasing this arrangement that is me supposed to be becoming one with someone else. And that just feels so like seeped in like contradictions and like it seems like they're at odds. They're at war with one another.
Sure.
I think for myself, I feel like maybe it's different for other people, but I think I have this fear that like I will surrender my selfhood to this role of wife and mother or girlfriend or whatever that means, or like Mrs. fill in my future husband here or whatever, And yeah, I think that that's really tough. And like you see these Instagram reels or you see these like advice from like these older women who are like, never get married. Just don't do it. Never get married. And it feels so extreme. But then it's like you hear there's these stories of like these women who have like this complete erasure of themselves, It's like terrifying. I think we're all trying to release bondage from the patriarchy. And at the same time, because it's the only structure we've ever known, I think it's like it's like we all have like Stockholm syndrome or something.
Sure.
Like we're trying to follow these scripts, whether these scripts of like mother and wife and girlfriend and boyfriend and husband. And I think that we like the roles. I think they're important to like a civilization and like continuing society and like growing it. And at the same time, they keep us detached from ourselves in so many ways. Like, I don't
Sure.
know that humans have come up with a system where, I mean, really, truly, where we, on a mass scale, come together as ourselves fully without the burdens of like the vestiges of the patriarchy. Like from man and woman come together truly
Right.
without those burdens and
Yeah.
expectations.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Eh.
yearn for a day.
I mean, stuff like that, people have risen above it in ways, but it's just interesting because it always ends up snapping back in some other way. Like, I mean, it was like World War II, everyone goes overseas to fight, and then all of the women start working in the factories. And like, they have this level of autonomy that they hadn't seen ever in their lives. Then the war ends, and then the husbands come home, and then they're like, wait, these are all our jobs. So it's like, ends up regressing them all back. That I think was a big genie out of the bottle moment for a lot of the female population, I feel like, because it was just all of a sudden you know that this is possible. And it's like the only thing that was holding them back was the, I don't know, the invisible force of like, in order for capitalism to work, I think you need like, I don't know. I don't think
Homemaker.
homemaker is that the right word? I
Yeah,
guess.
that's a word. That's
Does
a
that does that
that's
have
a
to exist?
profession.
Yeah. Does that have to exist under capitalism in order for it to work? Because you have to extract the labor from someone, and that was a book, and this book I read by Terry Real.
Terry Real, he's our hero.
Yes, he's great. I don't want to talk about it. He talked a lot about how like our modern idea of those gender roles, or modern as in like 20th century idea
Sure.
of those, came about only, with the Industrial Revolution. Because before that, a lot of the time, your job was working the farm at home. And so because you're in the same space as your wife, you would have a much more, what some would consider like an even division of labor in the household. And then once it became that like you physically had to leave to go to the factory, and the factory had you in there, and they didn't follow OSHA or anything, and they're locking those doors, like,
Right. Locking them shut tight.
yeah, then the other person is left to do everything in the house. And then it's kind of created this division where it's almost like the man's responsible for the physical labor, and the woman is responsible for, I mean, in addition to all of the actual like manual labor of the household, but like she was then the only one in charge of like emotional labor as far as like teaching the children, that kind of stuff, and everything like that. And it just kind of became this implicit agreement. But I don't like that. I don't like
know.
that.
It's created a crazy division.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a surprise that there's so much then going into like the 1950s and 60s where you have all of this resentment kind of
Cult of domesticity.
yeah, that results from this whole world that on the surface people were able to make all their ends meet and everything like that, but it felt like it was at the cost of
Connection. Yeah.
and genuineness. What is the right word there?
I don't know, genuine reciprocity, genuine intimacy. I feel like not just within man and woman, but like with the family, perhaps.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, like a sort of vulnerability and intimacy with the family. Yeah, I think that already men struggle so much with or not men, but the patriarchy makes it so that men struggle with connecting emotionally, especially fathers to families. Bell Hooks talks about that in The Will to Change. She talks about like how some people, fathers don't know their fathers. So then it creates this whole, generational thing. But I imagine if we're looking at the course of history, that's got to be even more amplified with you literally removing that person from the home to work as like physical labor,
Right.
But it also is like, that's the point of the patriarchy. Like your body is tied to, your identity is tied to how well you can provide.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah. And I mean, that's when you get into like, I guess the whole alpha male idea of how the world works is ultimately you have to compete with each other for your mates and you have to compete with each other for resources, etc. So yeah, you do have to give up everything on your back in order to make that happen. And that's, again, another one of those ways that you end up sublimating your own self.
Another reason why like I really wanted to start this podcast was just like to get rid of this idea that like, sure, men tend to have more masculine traits and women tend to have more feminine, but the truth is, to be like a whole complete human being, like you need a balance of the two in each person. And I think through the socialization of the genders, we're taught at a really young age for boys to like smash the feminine sides inside of them. And as a girl growing up, like you're taught to like smash the masculine parts inside of you. And then you're always just kind of like growing up a little bit severed. I think that men really still have a long way to go in kind of like tapping into that feminine death that's still there. Like those like that latent feminine energy that like is just within themselves. But it's like because it was so fucking stifled at such a young boy age, like you're always just like in so many ways, like men are still grieving that part of themselves that's inside of them that was like killed at a very young age. I mean, this is literally the dark space. This is the dark space between Venus and Mars. Like it's the patriarchy. It's the systems that hold us down. It's capitalism. It's the death of the young boy. It's the death of the young girl. It's shame. It's pride. It's greed. That's the space. Right?
Yeah.
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 That's what keeps us like really in, not just on different planets, but like in the deep caves and the hills of those planets.
Yeah. Oof. Pushing us apart. Reverse gravity.
Reverse gravity. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. This has been The Space Between Venus and Mars with Jesse.
And Chris.
We hope that you tune in every other week.
Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
I don't know where we're going to be on.
We're going to end up somewhere.
We're going to end up somewhere.
Yes, you'll be able to continue hearing our sweet dulcet-tone voices.
Mm-hmm. Okay, until next time.
Bye.
Bye. Our show is made by us, Jesse Rojas and Chris Stoll. Our producer is the lovely Marian Rojas. Our composer and mixer extraordinaire is Rosalind Wong, and all of our art is carefully handcrafted by Jacob Bankoff. If you haven't already, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. You can find us there under @Venus and Mars Pod. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.